Yeah, looking all over. Thank you. We miss Fred.
Thank you.
We miss Fred very much. Fred and Libby both came many times, and they plan to take this course together. I really admire you coming into that. So Fred's with us. Anyway, Judy, you're on.
Oh, okay. Welcome again to this old house. And our first half of our program tonight will feature Mike Brown talking about another wonderful Thompson house. And I guess we kind of start today with a Rensselaer theme, because both Mike and Judy Jalot graduated from Rensselaer High School a couple of years ago. So we have a kind of a, my husband's a townie, so I kind of shouldn't use that term, but they are, and we're glad they're a part of our program tonight. But Mike's had a varied work experience from, I see, a summer carpenter's helper a few years ago, to an art instructor. I think that's what he was doing when I met him. And now the apartment construction and management and lawn care program. And just as we find with our second program, Mike's interested in antiques, collecting antiques, restoring, furniture building, and photography, canoeing, and fishing. So he's a little bit inside, a little bit out, I guess. And he's very kind to talk about a house he lived in. I suspect he must have done some work on. He's got the insights of actually being a house builder and then working with old houses, which is a whole other project. And we'll hear that from our second part of the program too. But I'd like to introduce Mike Brown, which probably many of you know, who will talk about this old house, the Thompson house on Clark Avenue. And he's got some family members with him today, and the homeowners too. So this old house.
Hey, thank you, Judy. I might start out by saying that researching this was a little difficult. As most of you know, going back into time, that's hard. Dates and so on vary a little bit. So a year or two you may find some conflicts in dates, but I got it as close as I could. I'm going to start out and kind of explain the Thompson family. I'm sure Bill McGraw did so also. But Alfred Thompson, who built the house that I'm going to talk about tonight, came from a large family. His parents were David Thompson and Eliza McCoy Thompson, and they originated in Ohio. They had 10 children, 7 boys and 3 girls. The girls were Matilda, Elizabeth, and Mary. The boys were Isaac, Alfred, Hiram, David, Simon P., Thomas, and Hawkins. And Simon P. is the Thompson that Bill McGraw's house, who built Bill McGraw's house. 4 of those boys ended up in Rensselaer, and let me think here. I've got that in another spot. Let's go on with Alfred. Alfred was born in 1829, and he died in the year 1896. He was born in Stark County, Ohio, so he lived for 67 years. He was the 3rd oldest in his family. He was educated at home until he was the age of 10. He then walked 2 miles a day to a log cabin school. Began teaching school at the age of 15, which I think Phil McGraw said that his brother did the same thing. He taught for 6 winters. Began learning the banking business from his uncle, Thomas McCoy, in New Lisbon, Ohio, and he stayed there for 3 years. In 1855, Alfred came to Rensselaer, began working at the Thomas McCoy and Son Branch Bank, which is where the Halleck and Beaver law offices are right now. June 12, 1855, Alfred Thompson married Mary Ellen Travis of Prairie Bird, Illinois. She was born in 1830 and died in 1916. 1859, he and his cousin bought the bank and renamed it A. McCoy and A. Thompson Bank, Alfred McCoy and Alfred Thompson Bank. Alfred and Mary had 3 children, Mrs. Florence Sears, Mrs. Ora T. Ross, and Delos Thompson. And the second half of the presentation tonight is on Delos Thompson. The dates on when the home was built has been a little bit conflicting. We weren't able to find the actual abstract. We think the house was started in 1877, was finished in 1879. At that time, Park Avenue was called River Street. And I've got an interesting story about that later on. The style of the home is Second Empire Italianate, which is a Victorian style. The Second Empire was an elaboration of the Italianate style. And cousins of the Second Empire style are Eastlake, Queen Anne, and occasionally the Victorian Gothic style. And I'll show you some examples of those later. The thing that distinguished the Second Empire style was the mansard roof. The mansard roof got his name from a man who in France was responsible for the revival of the Italianate style. And one of the first examples of that was the Louvre Museum in Paris, which is a famous art museum. And when that museum was rebuilt and redone, they used a mansard roof. His name was actually Mansart, M-A-N-S-A-R-T, but it's called mansard or mansardic roofing now. Another reason that was done in France, it was a way to save tax money. They counted it as attic space, although it could be used as living space, and so it wasn't taxed. And that was one of the reasons it became popular. Characteristics of the houses of this period: smooth, hard, dark brown brick with limestone, used in keystones above the windows, or as pediments, or in the corners. And you'll see when I show the video, this house certainly has that. Cast iron fencing, roof cresting. By roof cresting, I'm talking about wrought iron used at the top of the roof, or at the ridge of the roof, just for ornamentation. Projecting cornice with medallions and brackets, and you'll see that this house definitely has that also. I see by my notes that I already talked about the Louvres. Okay, I think we're ready to look at the house, and then we'll talk about the owners after that. If we could have a couple rows of lights turned down. I'm probably going to need one row so I can see this remote.
That's the TV only remote.
No, I think this is the VCR remote. As soon as I can find the play button. Okay, as you can see, we're looking down Park Avenue. We're looking at the house, kind of looking south. You can see the house next to the Thompson house was an Ora T. Ross house, which was a daughter of the Thompsons. Let me get my pointer here. Just give you an overview of the
Mike, you want us to turn on the other light now, or is that?
You probably, well, except I'm going to need to pause from time to time. If you turn that one on, it'll probably work better. If you can figure out which one that is. You can see the street sign there, it says Park and Grove Street. Notice the bay windows in the house. It's a big bay on the south side of the house, and then in the front, they're rounded. Again, it was Mary Ellen's daughter, Ora T. Ross, that built the house next door, and if you've ever noticed, the entrance, there's a side door here which is now closed, but one time was open, went to the front door of this house, which you can tell then that they spent a lot of time together. The cornerstones, like I said, out of limestone, the pediments over the window out of limestone, the wrought iron over the front door, over the portico, the massive cornices with the brackets and the detail of those brackets. We did a lot of work replacing soffit when we were We did put a new roof on the house in '88. We painted it about that time also.
There were never windows in those little crack windows.
No. When we bought the house, the windows in the attic had been closed off. There were raccoons up there, squirrels. They were getting into the roof. Bats. Dean and us will testify that there is an occasional bat from time to time. You can see right here, if I can pause that, this is the area where the carriage house was located, and then there was a barn that sat behind the property for the horses. This was called the carriage house. This two-car garage over here was built later in the 50s by the Hanleys. Oh, this is interesting. This is the ice house that was built onto the house in 1903, as it shows you there. That door is where the iceman came and put the ice blocks. This door opens, and there was a wooden shelf in there with a drainage system, and as the ice melted, the water would drain away. And I'm going to show you in a minute when I open the door of the ice house how it was made, cut into a wedge so that it's sealed off. And that's a poured concrete roof on that building. And it really stays cool. See the thickness of the door? There's even a window on the opposite side. I'm not sure why they put that in there unless someone gets stuck in there. Here's the opposite side of the carriage house in the back. This shows a kind of a back view of the Ora T. Ross home. That's Harry Merlan's house now. I'm going to show you some detail on these front doors, which are solid walnut. They're about 3 inches thick. I've refinished them once, and Estel's refinished them once, since he's had putting finish on it. They were painted sometime. There were also screen doors on the house originally. These are the interior doors entering the foyer. A transom window above, which is etched glass. I'll show you detail. This is the staircase going up. The wall on your right was originally not in the house, and that was the main foyer to the house. This house has 3 apartments upstairs, and so that area of the house was closed off back when Emil Hanley bought the house. That staircase is solid walnut, even the steps. We refinished all that. The newel post at one time had a lamp on it. You can see the detail there. The story that I got, the paper boy slid down the railing and knocked the lamp off. That's what the Hamlets told me. Here's the etched glass that's above those doors. At one time there was etched glass in the bottom doors also. The Rumans, which was part of the Hamlet family, carried out one of the big pieces that was in the door. So evidently one of them was broken at one time and then they weren't replaced. This shows the upstairs foyer with the large massive plaster cornices and the detail work on the archway and the ornamentation here. Originally, this foyer was open to the front. The two windows above the portico of the front doors was open. But that's another bedroom for the apartment. Okay, this takes you up to the attic, which for me is interesting just by the structure and the way it was built. The attic was floored. It's got 2x12 double floor joist system on 16-inch centers. There were 3 furnaces added to the house when the apartments were put in. This goes up to the widow's walk up on top. There's very few people that get to see this. We're going to go up on top of the roof now. This gives you a view of the city from the roof. Look at that shot right there. When I was younger, I thought it'd be a great place for a hot tub.
Wow, right.
But there's lots of steps getting up there. When we re-roofed the house, that was an amazing job. My wife wouldn't let me do the shingle work, so I did the flat roof part. This kind of shows you an overview of the city. Probably went too fast. There's the Presbyterian Church, and you can see the trees in some cases. The elevator was in the background there. We're looking north. It's hard to see through the trees. I back up here and it's a little easier to see them. There's the wrought iron railing up on top. This is the Hadley house next door, which originally was a Parker house. I think it was built in the 20s. The tile roof. This is the old Babcock house, which is now closed. When you're up there, you can actually see the river heading out of town. It's a little hard to see in the video. It's neat to see a snowstorm and at night with the lights on. It's the right house. We're looking south now. Come around to the courthouse again. As you know, the courthouse was built after this house. It was built in 1896, and this house was built in 1877. So 20 years difference. This shows from the steps looking towards the dormer windows out front. Okay, now we're entering the living room, or what was called the ballroom space, showing the medallions on the ceiling and the focal point fireplace and the mantelpiece, looking through to the dining room. Trying to pause it there. This archway right here, we don't think was original to the house. I think that was probably put in when the Masons had it, just to join those 2 big rooms, because there's another door off the foyer.
Still all walnut?
That particular trim on the doorway wasn't walnut, but all the rest is. The original woodwork is all walnut, including the shutters. There is some oak mixed in, and I'll show you that in the dining room. Notice on these shutters, in the bay windows on the front of the house, they were built with pockets for these shutters to pull back inside of the pockets so they'd be out of the way. And I show you there with a shutter being pulled back and put into the pocket. The windows are 1/4-inch plate glass. Quite a few windows have BB holes in them. Someone was shooting pigeons. Escondino put a ventless gas log in the fireplace, which really helps heating that room. I want you to notice the mantelpiece in particular, the detail with the burl and the carving and the gold leaf. And I have a picture. I did some research at James Whitcomb Riley House in Indianapolis, I believe, has the same mantelpiece as this from the picture that I found, and I'll show you a picture of that in the video later. The marble is supposedly Italian granite, reported. And I was told by the Romans that all the walnut is native to this area. I'm not sure. And the medallions in the living room area, the ballroom, are flowers. Shows you close-up detail. Now, originally, this house, I'm sure, had gas lighting. From what I'm told, they produced their own natural gas in the attic with the tank. And it caused a fire at one time. You can see in the attic where I guess they used fuel oil lamps underneath the tank, and somehow were able to produce their own gas for their lighting. This is the dining room. It shows you the crown molding in there. A lot of focus. The transom window above the door, which is the side door now. This shows you some of the wainscoting, and that's a walnut and oak mix. Before we refinished that was dark shellac. You couldn't even tell there was a difference in the wood. The right door, you'll see there's two doors here. The right door was an entrance into the butler's pantry, which has long since been removed. This shows you the commemorative plate that the masons made up, has some of the history of the house on the back. And I brought one of those with me if you want to see it. They say the house was built in 1879. Supposedly, I'd read somewhere they built the house for $10,000. That shows a pocket for big walnut doors that we took off when it was carpeted. Haven't gotten aren't back on yet. I'm trying to pause. This is, as I mentioned before, where the bank was, the McCoy and Thompson Bank. You can see some of the architecture on this. It must have been built about the same time. From the cornice work and the bracketing and the medallion work. I shot all this video today, so I'm glad it wasn't raining. Okay, I'm showing you this house because this is where Alfred McCoy lived. I think he built this house, from the information that I got, for $7,000 when it was built. It was built about the same time. It's an Italianate style. This is where Gordon Floco lived, and he did a lot of work to this house. Next door is another McCoy house, and this was Alfred's brother Thomas lived in this house. Built this house, I believe. I don't have a lot of information on
I
it.
think it was his son.
Was it a son?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
How long did it take him to build those houses at that time?
Pardon me?
How long did it take him to build a house like that time, those type of houses?
Well, I think that I read on the Thompson house, it took him 2 years to build the house. So that's probably somewhat close, at least for the brick homes, with a lot of detail. If you notice the cornice work and the bracketing, the dental molding, and the pediments over the windows, it's all that period of architecture, the Italianate style. Now I'm showing you the side of this house pretty closely because I'm going to show you in a few minutes some pictures of when the side of that house was blown out with dynamite. That's kind of a eerie story, but... And also the front of the house has changed. That area up on top where you see that, the little dormer, there was a large dormer, and you notice that in the pictures I'm about to show you that I found in the library. Thomas bought Alfred shares out in 1909. This house was found. Supposedly he was embezzling money from the people of Rensselaer, and they ran him out of town.
He was our first mayor.
Is that right?
The dormers are big.
Yeah. Notice this section of the house is completely gone now, and this was altered to what you saw earlier. And of course, the house doesn't look like that now. Oh my goodness.
Great.
Okay. Front porch is very simple. I'm going to show you some examples of some other Second Empire Italianate architecture that I found in books with the mansard roof. Shows you some similar from here with my taking and editing a little bit. My wife taught me to.
Is there a full basement?
There is a full basement in the house. There's 3,500 square feet on each level, so it's large. This shows you the Riley House, James Wickham Riley House on Lockerbie Street. Notice the similarity in style, although it doesn't actually have a mansard roof. Notice the mantelpiece. I'm going to take you in close on it, and from this you're going to lose the detail of the face, the woman's face in the middle. But it looks to me like it's pretty darn close.
Do you know when the Riley House was built? Is it the same period?
It says there, I've got the information, 1877.
Okay, that's why.
This house was 1877. I don't know the other one. This is in Lafayette on 21st Street. And it was in a book in the library of important or historic Indiana homes. This takes us out to the Western Cemetery, and it shows the two Thompson brothers and sister. And then behind it shows the parents, Mary Ellen, Travis Thompson, and Alfred. It's right there on the edge of the road by the river. And this was Mary Ellen's mother's grave. Fanny Travis. And I think that's all I have for you.
Well, I think we've got some questions, don't you? Since you've been involved with a lot of construction and more, I suspect you have a sense of old houses, but I also want to thank you for the art lesson. Art instructor. But, so, you know, when we see the program, This Old House, they talk about the old houses and having to use new materials and so forth. Have you found that true when you were working on that particular house?
Of course, it's important to be a little more energy efficient than they were in those days. And so you have to implement those things, utilities such as electricity, so on. In that house, it was a little bit easier because they had gas pipe run for all the gas lanterns, so that most of the electrical is in conduit, although new electrical has been put in. It's a water boiler system for heat in the downstairs, and there was a story behind that. When the Masons had it, supposedly someone forgot to deliver the fuel, and it was a cold winter, and all the radiators burst.
Oh.
Get a lot of water down there. Yes?
I was in that house when I was a real young boy. Mason took me in there. He said that there was a cistern in the back of that building.
Yes. Yeah, they collected their own water and then, I'm sure, pumped it up for use. Yeah.
What were the heights of them ceilings in that house?
They're 12-foot ceilings, I forgot to
Yeah.
mention that. Both first floor and second floor,
Oh, well.
yes.
The Thompsons owned that whole lot clear back to Park Avenue for a long time and wouldn't sell it. Laura Thompson, that house wasn't built when her folks were alive. She built that after they died.
Is that right?
Yeah. And
Oh.
the widow's walk on top, I think it's an interesting story. Mary Ellen told me that Alfred went up there and watched Delos ride in from the farm on his horse. He could watch it.
I forgot to mention that Alfred had 3,500 acres, 4 miles east of town, and Alfred McCoy had 3,800 acres, 7 miles east of town, which is now McCoysburg, I guess. They had 10,000 head of cattle and 6,000 head of hog, and it was the largest stock farm at that time this far west, according to what I read.
The Thompsons own a great deal of land north of, all of the Gifford Marsh and all of that belonged to the Thompsons at one time.
Simon owned a lot of ground that north,
And he
Hard,
started
Gifford, and yes.
Did you say you had a story about River Street?
Yes.
Who is it, Estel?
Mrs. Kramer said that in her abstract that there was a prominent family on that street whose daughter wanted to attend college, and she was afraid that living on River Street might hurt her chances of getting in, so with the family being influential, they were able to change the name to Park Avenue. She says her abstract states that. So I assume it's a Thompson family, but
it was Helen Murray.
Oh.
was it?
I think I had heard, and I'm sure it's true, that when those big houses were built, they ran to the river there were no houses on that other
Right.
side. How long was that? Or what are the age of those houses on this side of the river?
Just guessing, I would say those houses on the other side of the river probably weren't built until the 40s, 50s. I think it was, obviously, when the Thompsons sold to the lodge, then I think the property started selling around it. But supposedly that Thompson house had quite a bit of property with it. And I was also told that he really liked walnut and planted a lot of walnut trees. So that whole end of town, you'll see a lot of walnut trees. And I guess he's responsible for that. Let me look at my notes real quick and see if there's anything else.
Got time.
I didn't mention to you, I told you that Prairie Lodge bought it in 21. We think that Emil Hanley purchased it, again, conflicting dates, between 53 or 57. And he's the one that added the 3 apartments upstairs, Emil and Mary Ann Hanley.
Did he actually purchase that property?
Oh.
I'm not going to get into that. There was some discussion about how he obtained that property. I don't know the facts. In '83 is when my wife Janet and I purchased the home, and we purchased it originally just as apartments. We put 3 apartments downstairs, and we had it as 6 apartments for 5 years. And then we had an opportunity to sell our house in the College Woods. So then we came in and took out the 3 apartments we put in downstairs, and we lived there for 3 more years before we sold it in 1991. And built another house, yes. Alfred Thompson retired in 1881. He sold his bank shares to Thomas, his brother. Again, I think I told you, his most valued possession, according to him, was his 2,500 acres. And I told you about Alfred McCoy, a partner, having 3,800 acres. And I think that's all I have for you.
But
Any
you
more
live in a
questions?
brand new house,
Yes.
so maybe another time you can talk about your new house. But
Here
did
she
you-
goes
I
again.
know. Did you carry some of the old house
I tried to. I like.
Because you've got dormers and brick and,
Yeah. Those that know me very well know that I'm kind of particular about things, and I guess living in an old house, it's hard to relax, and so that's probably one of the reasons. And I had some health problems at the time, so we decided to sell and go to a newer home where supposedly headache-free. More headache-free, so.
do you have any comments about your home?
Not particularly. The medallion would be the family crest just throughout the house.
Oh.
I know you didn't mention it, or I think it's a family crest.
It looks like a
That is
shield.
on the fireplace, and then it's also above some of the doorways. And it's also in the bottom of the stairwell going up.
Oh, wow.
I didn't realize it was family crest, I guess.
I'm guessing it's a family crest. I don't know if it is or not.
Are the transoms etched glass or clear?
Clear, except for the one above the front door.
Front door, yeah, I think we'll see
Front
a,
door's the only one.
I have to admit
Evidences
that
of
I
other
did
trades.
make a big mistake when we bought that house. They had a beautiful door going to the dining room from the foyer that was etched glass, and it had a T right in the middle. And I was trying to take it out because I was afraid the tenants would break it, and I broke it.
To update your story on the dynamiting of the McCoy house, while Beulah was presenting courthouse a couple of years ago in this program, Tim Eager took me aside and told the story of McCoy taking the bank funds down to New Orleans and gambling them away. And his grandfather went out north of town. You could buy dynamite apparently at any store. And they told Tim to stay home or whatever. But I guess Tim was either very little or else he heard the story from his dad. But the seven of them pulled up the dynamite and blew up the side of the
I
house.
heard that story, but I didn't want to tell it. I'm glad you did.
thank you. We'll have a short break now, so eat, drink, and be. Gillott is an alum of St. Joe, and and was in the Air Force for 20 years. Prior to that, worked for GM Hughes Range Systems for 3 years, and has now come to St. Joe as Assistant Vice President for Facilities. And while Ron's been there, you know, we've got new windows, and the grounds are wonderful, so he works magic a lot of places. During part of his Air Force career, he directed operations of a base, and he was responsible in that job, too, for buildings, roads, and heating, and more. And Ron and Judy both share an interest in touring of homes, business facades, and churches. And Judy has a special interest in interior decorating of older homes and a good grasp of color combinations. And if any of you have been in their home, you know she works magic. It's a magical place, and I don't know if they like it being called a painted lady, but it's painted beautifully in and out. Ron Gillott and his wife Judy.
Thanks, Judy. One sort of gets branded in life. You ever notice on something that happened or whatever, and seems like any time I go to a barber shop, it doesn't matter if it's in Rensselaer or anywhere, I have just a little hair growing on my ears and I want to get it off. And I said, well, I'll just go in for just a little on the sides. And I always come out like this. I don't know if they just sense the military or something in me. I don't know. One other time I was going to Africa. I said, well, I'm going to go to Africa once again, a little. And they must have thought I was going to India because I ended up with a Gandhi. By the time I got back, I had a little stub. Kidding aside, Mike did an excellent job here talking about the Alfred Thompson house, and I'd just like to share with all of you as far as some history on the Delos Thompson house, talk about ownership, and then go into the home. Delos was, like Mike said, the only son of Alfred, and he married Julia Skinner. And the Losses visited and, of course, shared in that wedding in Battle Creek, Michigan, in March of 3rd of 1886. And Thompson was a capitalist and ex-banker. And then Delos, the Mary Ellen Fisher's grandfather is Delos Thompson. And Julia Skinner, Delos's wife, was a very gifted pianist, and Mary Ellen Fisher would just enjoy listening to her many hours in her early life at the house. The Kirks bought the house in 1937, and then the Tollers after the Kirks, I believe in the 50s, and then the Ropers in the late 80s. And then we were able to purchase it May of '91. The house was well, a little on Delos. He was an entrepreneur in the sense that he and McCoy and Reinhardt, they owned the Rensselaer Stock Farm, which was well known to one of the horses, the home of Rensselaer Wilkes, whose record, it says here in the paper we got from Microfiche, have made him famous from sea to sea and advertised the town for which he is named for more than all of its illustrious statesmen and soldiers have done in the past. This farm was a model stock breeding institution and of great importance to the county, and no expense was spared to produce the best bred trotters and pacers in the country. In addition to that, he was one of the subcontractors for the courthouse. He and Sigler and Saylor were successful bidders on the grading and the sidewalk to the courthouse. And that was in 1896. And then in the spring of '97, they were fortunate enough to get the contract for the coping of the walls around the courthouse. In 1887, can everyone hear me? Okay, sometimes my voice doesn't carry. In 1887, Delos says in the paper here, they built a new barn, just completed, and one of the best looking in the county at that time, I guess. And that was June 9th of 1887. I was fortunate enough in 1995 to get some correspondence from an architect in Las Vegas, as a matter of fact. We had just come back from Vegas and lived there for a number of years, and this individual worked at the university and took pictures of the house here in Rensselaer, and then did some research and stated that the house was a variation of design number 128 in the cottage souvenir revised and enlarged. And he had letters from a George K. Hollingsworth, who actually corresponded with the architect, which is George Barber out of Ohio. And that's the plans which he sent me a copy of are exactly the plans of the house that we have. And it was plan number 2 for design number 128. And the cost of the home at that time was $3,000. The home has five bedrooms. It's a total of nine rooms, excluding the side porch that we use in the summer. Approximately 4,000 square feet, excluding the basement. That would include about 600 square feet on the 3rd floor. The home is a late Victorian era home. The late Victorian era was from 1880 to 1910, and so this falls right in the time frame there of 1892. The home is in the paper there, and it said an illustration of Mr. Thompson's modern built home on page 28, and this was in the Rensselaer paper way back then. It's on Microfiche. And it really hasn't changed. Yeah. It's an indicator of there is the fact that probably the house was, the main body was white and then just some other off coloring on the, around the windows.
Originally white.
But Judy had, she painted the painted lady. So, special thanks, before we go into the slides, to Mary Ellen Fisher, to Branson Clark, who was my main carpenter and I was his assistant. I learned a lot by, in the process of renovating the home. Jim Thomas, a worker out at the college, he helped us with stripping the mantle and the pocket doors. The pocket doors we cannot take off because they're not really on metal. The whole casting and the track is all wood to include the rollers. So when we had all the walls apart, there was no way we could get the doors out. So we just had to strip them as is. John Plank did some electrical work. Dale Wind, who did some masonry work inside. He was from Morocco, did excellent work for us. Rick Moe was the painter out of Morocco.
Monticello.
I'm sorry, I said, yeah, out of Monticello, thanks, Bill. And he did all of that work just on the ladders, no scaffolding. I wouldn't do it that way. But he was, it took him a while, but he really did a nice job. Larry Barkley, many thanks to him for doing all the stripping. We took the doors down and all of the various woodwork around the door frames and so forth. So without his help, we wouldn't have completed. And the late Earl Neasy for some lights that we purchased from him. And we'll talk about that too. So many thanks to all.
Oh, lights.
We have that center one. I think this will do, and hopefully.
I bet the post is on the center one.
Maybe the,
Is,
The post may be on the center one.
turn the,
Yeah.
turn this.
There. Yeah.
Let's see what happens here. If not, I have some extension for it. There'll be a couple here that just didn't work out, but this was the old barn, and it was beyond repair. We couldn't fix it. It was in a floodplain, and the sides were out, and there was just no way that we could save it. We would have liked to have, but we couldn't. Well, that's
Okay.
Jeff, is there a telephone book in the back over there? Simple Victorian with many porches, has the different size windows, which is a key to another to Victorian. The old horse tie up there without the metal hooks, the chain out of the iron fence. Judy was able to bring out, so when we bought it, you can see some pictures over there on the left. We didn't have any of the railings. The ornamentation was luckily in the barn, so we were able to save that. All of the different engravings above this particular window were there, but we had the foresight to bring it out with different colors. Same thing with this medallion here. As the cupola up on top. We went and stayed with the wood on stairs throughout, just for the same type of era. And I'm getting ahead of myself here, but we screened in the side porch What we did was, we started from the top and really worked down. We did the roof, because we had, once again, we had squirrels in there, things of that nature. Had a bat up there on the third floor, so that's typical, I guess. Then all the porches, we redid all the porches, starting with the side one, then the front one, and then going around on the side. They were all in rotted, and they were, we just had to get jacked up and leveled out. Lucky to have the one molding here, and then we had one of the posts or whatever, yeah, balustrades, and had others were able to purchase from Mona, Guy Lumber. We did some research and we were able to get them. Side porch, a little lighting, but anyway, Judy brought out just different colors. We had 4 different colors on the house, and she did one match that real well. Except all new porch as far as the stairs. This is the back of the house. Once we purchased it, as you see, that would be a nice jolt. About 3 feet down. There was no back porch, so I couldn't get in there. And the floors were about, they sloped about 6 inches inside, and that's not really an exaggeration. I think no one would have purchased the house, or if that would have stayed in the present condition, it probably would have collapsed in about a year. So we did a lot of work, first outside and then mining underneath inside. In the back, we have, we put on a deck to skip the lattice work, but didn't, because of the way the porch was, the distance there, instead of having maybe a patio flat. We did stay with the area, still went with wood steps, and put some ornamentation up on the top. Floor on the back deck. We took this floor, which was from the side porch, and we took that off of the side and put it on the back, treated lumber. Because we wanted to make the side one a nice enclosed screen porch. Also, you can see here, this was before it was screened, and there was no actual closure to the basement area. So we put tongue and groove on the side porch, and then I put the lattice back up. There was lattice originally there, and added more 4x4 posts, and then put the screen in. And just added more posts, leveled it out, and did a lot of leveling in this house. And added, we didn't go with the metal, we stayed with the wood type scenario, and maybe I'll have to redo it in 5 years, 6 years, but we just wanted to keep the wood. So we stayed with wood, and we constructed it. From the basement view, going out, we did, like I said, all of that, and then we did the steps and mortared part of the foundation doing it. I learned a lot in this process. I would, for new people that are thinking about doing a house, if you can live somewhere else when you're doing it, that's the way to do it. If you want to test your marriage, live in it. And
That's right, too.
Find out if you have a strong one.
Lived in the basement for 1 year.
Yeah, we were, Judy's kitchen was downstairs here in the basement. Oh, the beginning of the mines. Okay. There was a small size, just a small wall, and past owners had cut this wall, so what we ended up doing was getting about a 12-foot I-channel metal beam, and we put that up there. And then we bolstered it with metal plate, top and bottom, and bought a 30-ton jack, and we used it quite a bit. This is, you can see the part that was cut. And we went through the concrete a couple of times before I realized, well, we ought to spread that energy. So from then on, it was always steel plates for both the bottom and the top. And it really makes a loud bang when it goes through. Scary. Anyway, we have 19 of these posts strategically located in the basement. The basement is it's 8 foot tall, and about 7 of those are in the kitchen area, and then the others are spread out in the back part of the home. Thickness of the walls, ropers have done quite a bit in the basement, really. All of this, as far as waterproofing and so forth, was there. We put the insulation in, they had the blocks in. Just a typical beam, the old standard 2x9 or 10, and it's solid and a true 2x. And we put 200 amp surface electrical in the home, gas, and we put the air conditioner in. This is coming in from that back mud room. Going in, there was a nice hole here, and it came out from the back staircase. And so we closed that off and turned the stairs, which you'll see later. We use this as a summer kitchen and the summertime, just, mud room. This is the back looking. You can't shut that off. With that ledge, you just. Anyway, what we did was there was subflooring, and we put brick floor in there, and there was no molding around the windows and so forth as far as the wood trim. We put all that up. And
We found that up on the 3rd floor.
Yeah,
Up in the wall, and it was all piled up.
in this particular room, it matched pretty well, except for the floor mold. Coming in from the mudroom transom, this particular room was all odds and ends as far as the wood, and so there are all different kinds of grains, and we decided to paint the wood in this particular room, the family room. And so we just brought out the different characters on the scrolls that were already etched in the wood. Judy and I did the wainscoting was all painted, so we spent many hours taking the paints off. Yes, our family room was the original kitchen, and it's stated on there, and also from others.
What kind of wood?
It's oak. It doesn't go backwards. Let me try it with that. Yeah. Well, over all of the windows, there's always wood going from the base of the window down to the floor, and there's all different scrolls in there. That particular room, the family room, the wood on the floor was pretty bad, so we ended up carpeting that. What I did was I bought a couple hundred fans, which were 1886 type fans, so reminiscent of 100 years or whatever. So these particular fans, they rotate the entire thing rotates from this point, so not just the fan blades. This is the return staircase, and it's the back staircase going up. This here, what we did, just a small, very small swinging door going from what was the kitchen here to the dining room. And so we took that wall out, put in rough cut cedar posts, 8 by 8 square, and that was fun. Judy was able to find a couple doors, this door and the door that leads from the mudroom in. She got those in Kentland, so we just put those up and stained those.
Yeah.
Bathroom, the only thing we did there was, we just put different linoleum down. The original bathroom really came in from a bedroom that was off the side, and there was a closet. What we did here was, this was a very narrow passageway going into the washroom, so we enlarged it in width and height both. And then Judy carried the theme of this wallpaper in the family room and the kitchen both. We had a professional lady come in and do the family room, living room, and the stairwell, front stairwell. And Judy and I did the rest. These corner ones, a few of them are original and some of them are that we were able to purchase. And this room was our living room, dining room, and everything for a long time. This was off of the dining room, and it was just a rough wood floor and unfinished, and so we started from the top and worked down inside the house. And like I said, we redid all of the wood, and we just carried a bluish green tint in there. This was the kitchen. Probably have a better shot over here of the kitchen area here. And let's see, where's that? Right there. What we did there is we put the corner cupboard, which is back over here, we moved it and put it over here. And where the corner cupboard originally was, we put a wood burning stove. So that's the corner cupboard there. It was a 1950s type of kitchen. We took the cabinets and oven that was here out, and we were lucky to find a old, originally, this was, the base was really shot. We fixed that up and cleaned it, stained it, and whatever, and then we painted the back of this. So it turned out real nice. It's just like it blended right into the original, like it was meant to be there. The floor was parquet originally. Couldn't keep that. There was a lot of holes, a lot of water damage, so we just went to the bare floor and then ended up painting that with the poly paint. And it wipes up real nice and it's held up real well. I'll probably paint it this year. So she kept that type of look, although it's a little modern there as far as the stove, but on the back side where she has access to this, all she has is curtains.
Lace
Pretty much, but that's just, there's curtains. And that's off to the side porch. This is the brickwork tying into the fireplace, and we were able to purchase that particular stove from Barclay. We have a couple, so we sold us this one, and corn cobs, whatever. And it does work.
It does work.
I sealed it up, and it does work, but Judy doesn't want me to put the fire to it too much in case I mess it up and end up with a lot of smoke.
Is that original gingerbread?
This gingerbread is original to the house, and it was in, I don't know, it must have been this should be a lot lighter than that. This originally was in what they call the parlor, which is our dining room now. And that's where Julia used to play the piano, and that was right over there. This was coming into the dining room, which was originally the study or library. And it was pretty well scanned and shot. It was marble originally, the small marble green, but we couldn't save it. It was all cracked because of the condition of the floors. Didn't realize how nice the floors were until after we cleaned everything up. Same thing with the fireplace. The fireplace was black soot. As far as the mantle, this was originally a coal type of fireplace. and we can see why afterwards. The detail on this, which unfortunately, all of the detail that is really there, we didn't realize until after we cleaned it up. And we just went with the brick. And just last month, for the gas log with, the vents.
That works well?
Yes, it does. And then unfortunately, this is the top part, and just really, I don't know if it's just because of the light or whatever, but the detail there was lost now. But anyway, Jim Thomas worked on it with a toothbrush and so forth for a while to clean that one up. This is how it looked 4 years ago, as we cleaned up, we did some rooms we replastered, others we just drywalled, depending on how bad the condition was. This was pretty bad, they had holes in it and so forth, so we took it all down.
Those are pocket doors you're talking about?
Yes, on that side, you'll see them later. This here was not a pocket door.
The last slide.
The last one.
The last, let's see if I can go back. Right here, yes.
That goes into
That
the
goes
living room.
into the living room. And back here, after all this was cleaned up, there still was a different grade of wood and really had some slats and holes, and so Judy came up with a real nice idea of it. So the floors, you can see the design there in the dining room, and that's the vent there. So she came up with the wallpaper idea in the back and worked out real good. Those are all the dust collectors or collectibles here. So those were some of the things that we collected through our travels. Just trying to highlight here, just the wallpaper border she carried through 3 rooms. It's about, 10 or 11 inches. The first floor are 10-foot ceilings, and then the second floor are 9-foot ceilings. And there was holes all through here, and we just added a couple sconces and then with the drywall. And it's red, it's a barnwood red interior paint there. Just that small side porch leading out to that. And the chair rail we added. Unfortunately, Judy did all of the decorating, and then we ended up going to Earl Neasy after the fact to get the lights. And the lights are, he said, about 100 years old, and this blends in real well with the decor. It's just like it was meant to be, like the lamps were there first, and then we did the decor. It was totally amazing. This is going into the living room, and you can see it's just amazing the detail work that the older carpenters had. It's just phenomenal how that three-dimensional comes out at you. And
You couldn't tell that when you
no.
moved in, they were black. All the floors
and
were
since the
black.
floors were so uneven, instead of using a nice little sander, you can just go like this. I ended up with a little belt sander doing all of the work, but it turned out okay. We put a water-based polyacrylic on the floors, and that's how it looked real well. Because you don't have to take it back down, you can just add to it without doing all that extra work. We use zip strip a lot to take the different painting and so forth out. That worked best for us. They did the windows, the pocket doors, we did in place. All the other doors put on horses and did the poly and all the other stain. The floor lamp was my grandmother's, and Judy touched that up, and we just had a shade made for it. That's a better picture of it. And this seems like, like I said about the decor, that those were in there, and then she did the decor. I got to do pretty good wallpaper with it. And a mutter and a few other things. So it was a nice experience for me, but it was a once in a lifetime. Just trying trying to show, and I guess I can't, just a different detail in the woodwork. Each room is a little different in woodwork. In the dining room area, one wonders it was like more of a butternut type of wood, which is now pretty rare. But one wonders that if maybe the timber was there on the lot and then they just cut it since the sawmill was just down the street. You wonder if that was the case. The only thing I'm trying to show here is once again the wood that's below the window. This is where I guess Julie used to play the piano. We just in the envelope, we just put a sort of. And these are the original corners. Just trying to show that all of the brass work was like on Mike's prior home. The detail is just unbelievable, and the different hardware is just fantastic. They were all built to last, that's for sure. The old wood vent grate is in the entryway, and you can hardly see it here, but that's one of the old wooden door stoppers. And so those are on the baseboards throughout the house. And baseboards are pretty tall, and of course there's stuff on it. Front door, unfortunately you lose the detail here, but just another nice, beautiful door. Not as majestic as the Italianate, but still pretty nice in detail. We added the bell ringer and the deadbolt and so forth. We were fortunate enough on the stairway to, we didn't have to strip it or anything like that, so all we had to do is use Murphy soap and clean that up, and clean up real well. The only original lamp is right here. And evidently because of this, when it came down, it didn't hurt its start. It didn't take that
So it was on the new post.
Yeah. Closet underneath, and some more detail work here, which show right here, but it just doesn't come out too well. Going up the stairs, that's part of Judy's old family, long line, I'm teasing. She likes to collect old pictures, and we do have a few. She has a great aunt in the house, and I have a nice picture of one of my aunt's wedding in the house. To show once again the detail, and just different accents that they use. This was the sewing room. This is the smallest room in the house. Upstairs, a small bedroom, and just some detail work there. Judy Scribe kept the plaster on this one, and she likes to play around with her fingers, and that's how she does her scrolling there on the ceiling. Turns out really nice. It really does. It doesn't show it. And that's the back, or the other side of it. This is probably the master room, and see with all of the detail work on that wood. I have a nice big closet in that room, and just the borders up around that. This is our room, and this one, this is all plaster. All of the detail work around the windows was completely on the floor, just in a pile. And so we got to put all that together. And this is continuing on in our bedroom. And then, so we got like an L-shaped thing. And then just once again showing the detail work here. Each one is a little different. And into the showing the brass on the door jamb. The hinges, and then the upstairs, the tub. really is a nice long tub. You can lay back in it and really relax. This goes out from that area into my closet, and it's all built-in cabinets from way back then, so the detail is just phenomenal. Unfortunately, it doesn't show here. Coming out from there, we carpeted the back over here, and then Judy said, well, you know, the place was just a mess, and we added this light, put more light in the hallway, and then just gave it a little contrast by painting the stairs and just leaving the banisters and the sides. And,
That goes to the third floor.
so once again, just more of the corner guards. Bedroom up there, I use for just office. Going, this is, doesn't, you know, look at the picture, it shows like it's all one color, but it doesn't. That's just, we added a transom to get more light in here, back staircase, and then we just put similar type of door stoppers throughout the hall.
So you have a front and a back staircase?
Yes. And then going then up, proceeding up to the third floor. And actually, we started, and once we worked on the inside of the house, spent about 3 months in the basement leveling it off and going through the concrete. Once we got that done, then we started on the third floor and worked down. By the third floor, that means the third floor hallway. And I got to be pretty good on doing some drywall and stuff, and as I got better, well, confidence built up, and then kept on going down. So that's, what kind of glass is that?
Like a
Frosted type glass going in. So what was the ballroom that some of you are familiar with and maybe have danced up there? It's not that large, maybe 600 square feet or so. It's not done. We started from outside and worked back. But looking back from this door, you see the angle here of the roof line, and storage here on the left, a window there, and storage more on the right here. And then coming in now to what was the ballroom, this is just a part of the ceiling, and they had a plastic cover which would be more of a skylight. So I have one more project to do, see? And that's in here, and then I would put a skylight in here. This isn't as bad as the house was with some open stuff here. And really, there's only one coating of wallpaper to remove. So that really shouldn't be too bad. Just getting the time to do it, and probably checking the paint. I don't know if it's going to be lead or not, hopefully not. And we may just, I just may take it all off and then start over with the base. And this way, if we ever sold the house, we wouldn't have to worry. That would be the only place where there would be lead if there's any lead. And there's right here on both sides there's storage there, and the floor is in real good shape. After I would do the walls and ceiling, then see if I can back up, or maybe I will back up one. Right here, there's access to a higher ceiling where you can stand up, which is above this, and then to the right of that is where the cupola is. The cupola on that right side. So I haven't got to it. The kids sort of helping them with another house, since I learned so much on this one. Dad helped me on this and that. But, I don't have the knowledge that Mike does, and I wish I did, but still it was a joy to work on this and share that with you. And with that, I thank you.
We've got a little bit of time. Did we have any questions for Ron and Judy? Because they certainly have labored Was the floor so crooked that you had to level it? Is that why you did so much structural basement work?
Right, yes, there was a good 6 inches right to the.
Well, you mentioned that, so that
So I
was,
had to, jack that up and use that 30-ton jack and spent many hours. Quite an experience.
Judy,
Again.
Judy, did you pick out your own colors, or did you follow some
I picked my own color.
outside and inside? And
Yeah, both. That went crazy.
Uh-huh.
That's like what I wanted,
Uh-huh.
but yeah, I did it all.
She's,
Beautiful.
she just has that vision. I don't know how to explain it because I could never do that. But she's fortunate to have it. Would I do it again? Libby asked. I don't know. It was tough. It really was tough because you had to live in it. We had all the boxes up on the 3rd floor, and we just had the beds out. And it takes a special kind of woman to put up with dirt for almost 2 years. So most people just wouldn't be able to stand it. At times she couldn't, and she'd go to Lafayette. She'd have a little cry. So that's all part of it. But
there is a burnout factor.
sure there is.
yeah.
Yes.
Somebody had a question.
I had a
Yes.
question. When you raised those floors up, was that a gradual thing? I mean, you couldn't just do that
Well,
once.
because the walls were in such bad shape, we didn't do it gradually. We had to do it. And if they weren't in such terrible condition, then we would have had to just do it incrementally and slow.
Then you did the walls after you did that. That's a lot to change.
Yes, it is, quite a bit. But as we did that, then we were able to open and close the pocket doors. Before that, we couldn't.
Oh, wow.
That's how bad it was.
Was it water damage or termites or just lack of
Just,
everything?
yeah.
Okay.
It's, I think some of the prior people had some health problems, and then after they either left or the kids maybe just didn't have the money to keep it up.
Mm-hmm.
But we were happy to have it, and I tell Judy that it's my bed and breakfast. Yes.
It looks just beautiful on the outside, and I enjoyed all your flowers all summer.
That's once again Judy's efforts.
Well, they look
Thank you. I'm glad that you enjoy it. Maybe someday, we're incrementally try. I don't know if everybody signed in, but what we may do is incrementally have 15 or 20 people over and to walk through it. And we've been doing that for a couple of years, and possibly we can have this mix of a group, maybe half or so, and have a little cocktail party.
I think it's always immaculate too, I have a feeling.
So hopefully everyone signed in. I'd like to get the register.
I played.
Did you? So you
The
had
third
some.
floor had instead of a ballroom, with a billiard room.
Oh, was it a
And
billiard?
a big billiard table with 5 chairs, about 6 of them on 3 on each side. And those floors, I was there, remembered when they had to refinish them the first time. They had gotten pretty dark. And the Thompsons had them sanded and brought out their beautiful 6 different kinds of wood in each block.
Upstairs?
That's what she said.
Oh, it is beautiful, the woodwork in the house. This is marvelous. Yes, ma'am.
You have a Hollingsworth on the picture you passed around. I don't know if you said something. Do you know of a connection between the Thompsons and Hollingsworth? Because we owned the Hollingsworth house for 25 years. That was our house on Milroy.
I think only with possibly the sharing of plans, I believe.
okay.
And there was a Hollingsworth picture above that,
thought,
which
yeah.
I did not.
And he was a banker also.
Yes.
Hollingsworth was a banker.
Sure. Right, that was Emmett that was on it. Thank you.
Thank
For coming.
you.
Yes, I will. I turn my notes in. Oh, am I like in your way?
No, I'm trying to turn it off, and I don't know how. I wonder how you turn it off.
I know.
You always add good stuff. How was the cornerstone? Yep.
Thank you for taking care of your You were at the very first one.